Hello, I'm Craig Thielen, and this is the 1% Better podcast. Today I'm speaking with Del Costy, President, Siemens Digital Industries USA. Welcome to the show, Del. I'm looking forward to talking to you. We've been partners, the organizations that we work for a long time, I think over 10 or 15 years, and we've done a lot of work together in the PLM space and software testing. And now we're starting to partner on broader capabilities, digital capabilities. And you're in a role, and it's really interesting and excited to talk to you about, your vision, not only for Siemens and what you guys are doing in digital, but also just manufacturing in the U.S. and sort of what you see your role. So excited to talk to you about that. And so for those not familiar with Siemens and Siemens Digital Industries, just maybe give us a quick overview of sort of what you guys do and kind of what your target industries and clients look like.
I would love to. You talked about my role in the digital industries automation function. I started October 1st. But on top of that, I maintained my previous role, which is running the digital industries software organization for the America Zone, which I'm super excited about because the synergies between those two functions, when you look at the Siemens Digital Industries portfolio, it's exactly what industries are looking for today. So it's a super exciting time. I mean, the client relationships that we have, if I think, Craig, over the last 20 plus years, how that's changed. We talk about digital transformation, the transformation in our partnerships, and you guys have seen it. You've been right there with us. The transformation in our partnerships is like nothing I've seen in my career. The topics that we address, they're boardroom topics now. Even you look at the data right now and spend in the US this year, one of the things that just won't get cut are digital transformation initiatives. So that's an exciting place to be. So what do? We, as you indicated, PLM and the digital industry software side, we have all the product definition, our tool called Team Center, all part of the Accelerator portfolio.
Flagship product.
Yeah, right? Exactly. We're the largest used tool out there. We do the requirements definition of the product, 1D simulation, figure out how that product needs to be designed, how you plan the process, how I go ahead and drive the execution on the shop floor, the whole thing, everything that goes in between that, the mechanical, the electrical, the electronics, the software, all modeled in this environment. And now the exciting thing about the job I started October 1st is seeing how that manifests on the shop floor. The automation equipment that decides how a product is going to be built on the shop floor and the logic of the machines and how this all comes together is super, super exciting. And we hear about things like Industry 4.0 and how that's maturing. You hear about IT-OT Convergence. It's a fascinating, fascinating time.
Well, I can't wait to dig into it. It's really interesting for me. I grew up, in the early 90s, mid 90s, and I got my start in my career in manufacturing, implementing ERP systems, PLM systems, MES systems. And that was an interesting time because before then it was all these little disparate, a lot of things weren't on computers. They were very manual. And we were bringing, kind of digitizing, we weren't calling it that back in the day, but we were bringing some of those processes, a lot of lean manufacturing, a lot of Kanban, a lot of demand-driven manufacturing. I mean, you've been through the whole life cycle, process improvement stuff, and we were bringing that to the sort of digital world. But then it was like, how do we integrate all this technology, and how do we now automate? And we have so much data. So I'm excited because I've seen that over my career and kind of grew up in that environment. So it'd be really fun to kind of talk to you about it. So one thing I know you're super passionate about is just not just what you guys are doing and in the software space and automation space, but just manufacturing in general. Yeah. So I'd love to have you talk about, like, what have we been through the last couple decades, with manufacturing in the U.S., and where are we now? And of course, this gets into a lot of, geopolitical and policy and, trade agreements and all sorts of stuff. But I think that's important to kind of understand, like, where we've come from and where are we going and where do we need to go, frankly, to really continue to be a leader and, an innovator in the world.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny when I was going down memory lane when you were talking because it's very similar. I growing up in Detroit, it's hard not to have manufacturing in your blood. It just surrounds you. You don't walk down a street, you don't go to a restaurant and not meet someone that's working in some sort of manufacturing. It just doesn't happen in this town. But it's interesting. You talked about the last 20, I would say 30 years. I similar to you, I got involved in a job shortly out of college. I worked in the automotive tier space, and so learned that automotive product and what it means to launch a program from a tier supplier to an OEM. And then I made a transition into, I'd say, manufacturing consulting, and I got immersed, like you said. I remember in the mid to late 90s reading The Goal, and that kind of
Yep.
changed my thinking. And then working with customers in the Detroit area and what it looked like to drive lean flow concepts through a manufacturing facility. And how do you plan for supermarkets? Where should material come into a facility? How do you consume it at line side? How do you plan for tack time and balance work and cells, and all that great stuff that I think drove a lot of value in the industry. Fascinating time. But you think about the last 20 to 30 years. I remember being at an event. Mark Fields was CEO of Ford at the time, and he was speaking, and he
Okay.
talked about,
Okay.
of all the places I've worked, the most difficult place to get alignment between government and industry was in the US. And it was sad to hear at that time. I think we've seen an acknowledgement across the board in this country right now that I do think there's an awareness of how important our US identity is. We're a super innovative country, and grabbing that manufacturing excellence back is just critically important. And I think going through what we did in 2019 on with COVID, and how that changed things, the geopolitical tensions, you're seeing companies prepare for different things. And that manufacturing prowess and understanding your manufacturing footprint and capability and driving global flexibility is more important today than ever before. And having that digital knowledge, that digital twin. And we talk about a comprehensive digital twin because a lot of people think digital twin and they think product. For us,
Right.
it's not just product. The digital twin is the multidiscipline, multifunction of the product, but it's also the process definition. I have a digital twin of my product and my process and my manufacturing facility and execution. That's what we kicked off CES. Hopefully you saw Roland and
I
Cedric.
did. Yeah. I
Yeah,
was going to ask you about
awesome
that.
job. I thought I was in the front row. I thought they did a phenomenal job. But when you see what we were able to showcase, and we drink our own champagne, so we actually featured our own facility modeled
Okay.
in the industrial metaverse, which means real-time data collection, seeing that performance real time in a photorealistic environment right next to it. I mean, that is just the opportunity we have ahead of us. And I think about what's going on right now in our country, and this next wave. I mean, I was just speaking to one of our largest aerospace company customers. The CEO had the leadership team together, and we had a panel of four companies, all pretty significant size companies. And we got on a lot of great topics, and IT-OT Convergence was one, but we also talked about the crossroads of accomplishing all this and at the same time handling workforce issues that are coming up, taking what was an engineer to order type environment, and making it more automated in terms of process because of workforce shortage. How do I maintain and have a digitally native facility in a world where I wasn't accustomed to having that? And equally important, how do I hit my sustainability goals? How am I going to attack scope 2 sustainability goals by 2030? Technology is the heart of all that, but
Yeah.
getting that organizational inertia to make progress is so key.
Talk a little bit about the challenges that you're seeing, because I mean, let's face it, we've spent the last 20 to 30 years outsourcing manufacturing and sending it all over the globe, largely, China and Asia and all over the world. And there's those disciplines and that expertise doesn't exist in some cases, and we're seeing it come back. But it takes time to build that expertise back. And I'm curious because I mean, even Elon Musk, like, arguably one of the smartest, innovative guys on the planet, he has said emphatically that the most difficult thing he's ever done in his life by far is manufacturing at scale. Like design, innovation, technology, prototypes, all this stuff is hard. nowhere near the complexity of manufacturing at scale. So I'm just curious, talk a little bit about what do you see with your sort of core, traditional clients that have gone through this, we got to get rid of all the manufacturing wherever it's going, and now we got to bring it back. What are the biggest challenges that you're seeing?
Well, I do view this differently, and I understand where Elon Musk could come from, where he said that. But I got to tell you again, living here in Detroit, there is a depth of manufacturing knowledge that's exceptional, and I think it spans across the country. There's a great book for those listening. It's a book that's been around for a while, but if you haven't read it and has particular fondness to me, it's called Freedom's Forge, and it just goes through some of the key things and what really drove and left the United States forward through some major events that happened. But history tends to repeat itself. I think there's an
Mhm.
opportunity again. I do think the knowledge is there, but this is where digital matters. This is where AI matters. There's a lot of enhanced capability that is going to enable AI to assist you when you've got your data structure to actually go in and extract some of that knowledge that you've been building up over 30 or 40 years and put it in a consumable way for the next generation workforce to learn from and continue to grow from. So, we're working on that obviously with our ecosystem partners. And one of the things we talked about on that panel, I was sitting with SAP and NVIDIA and Microsoft, and then us as Siemens. And that was a conversation we actually had. And we talked about as companies in a similar space that some cases compete, but really are partners.
Yeah,
We talked about the ability to assist our customer base and doing that. And this is where technology is going to be a huge asset to us. It's not an enemy to us. It used to be, and you remember this, I'll use the word fondly loosely, but you especially think about the business you guys are in, but taking those legacy environments and moving them forward,
yeah,
upgrading systems, getting data that's forward compatible. But now we can actually really understand the insights of the data. We can understand the decision tree that went into how we designed a product the way we did. Then how do we modify the process? The last thing I'd say on this, Craig, we can't think about the Tesla example. We can't do things in silos. One more conversation we did have there, we were asked, what do you see the future being 5 years out with
yeah,
technology?
yeah.
And my comment was, technology is finally going to allow us to deconstruct the boundaries that exist. I work for a very large company. You're always managing through the boundaries that exist. We can
Mhm.
actually break those down. They can become artificial boundaries now that we can deconstruct because the technology, the ML, the AI, the generative AI that's coming, those capabilities are going to basically see through the artificial barriers we put up between engineering and manufacturing planning to manufacturing execution, manufacturing out the door to service of the product. I mean, those boundaries now can actually start to disappear as we train these models and bring that information forward. So of all my time in industry, I'm more excited about the prospects today than I've ever been. And that's
That's
saying a lot
awesome.
because I'm usually a pretty positive guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of technology and barriers, I mean, you guys just within Siemens offer a very wide range of software products and solutions. One of the sort of things that we thought we were doing in the 90s, we thought this notion of ERP was going to sort of bring an enterprise together and have everything on one platform. And we learned that it did that in some cases. I mean, sort of the core of a business, but there's so many layers of a business. There's so much complexity that it takes a lot of different solutions and technology. So even within Siemens, there's a lot of different solutions. So you pull that together in a way that you can simplify your customers' world, not make it more complicated because it's hard for them. They're running their business day to day, just trying to keep up and survive. And now it's like, well, what's this combination of sort of technology and solutions? How do you do that?
Well, look, I think this is where the advancement in technology starts to matter. I mean, moving all these capabilities to the cloud. Yeah, think about what it took in, I'll call it the old days to implement. You had to, one, get a solution. You had to get architects. You had to work with the business. You had to work with IT. You scoped out the project. You put together, what did you tend to do? You took great technology and you married it to existing processes. That wasn't necessarily the answer, but that was comfort.
Right.
right? And then you'd spend months and months, sometimes a couple of years building out the solution, and then you would test it. You'd figure out, oh, that's not perfect, and then you'd iterate on that testing cycle. You revise code, and then you try to go pilot it out. And next thing you know, you're 3 or 4 years in. You spent a ton of money, and you didn't have the user population you expected. Then, as a customer, I had to build an IT organization to support. I had all the costs of that. Think about where we're at now. I mean, I can have that solution on the cloud. I could have basic templates built. I could consume most of it. Maybe I have to tailor something specific to my business, but it's hosted. I don't have to manage
Right.
it. I don't have
Right.
to do the things that I did before. I could get access to the software and how it works much faster. These things are enablers for, we call it the accelerator platform for a reason, but it's when we revert back to doing things the legacy way that we're
Mhm.
missing some opportunities, right? And so I think the technology evolution has been so favorable to consumers that are ready to take technology because look, we often, Craig, talk about, we all talk about, everyone in the industry talks about driving business outcomes, but ultimately
Mhm.
business outcomes, the contributor to that success is 20% tech, it's 30% people, it's 50% process. So when we sit down with our customers and we go through, we describe as digital thread mapping, we do it in context of the process, not just of the tools. You're applying the tools to a process. Then you're looking at the dimension that is the people consuming the tools. But ultimately, it's what is my current process maturity and how am I going to improve that? Because that's where I'm going to get the value as a company.
Right.
By
So don't
doing
talk
that,
about,
by doing
yeah.
that, we manage the complexity because when we show it to them in the context of the process, you're right, we have thousands of products, but what
Right.
you need is an outcome. So let us put that together in an outcome against your process. Sorry, I went a little long there,
No,
but
that's great. You mentioned something in there that I think is key, and it's this whole idea of a digital thread. So just explain that to the folks that don't know what that means.
yeah, I'd love to. So again, I'd go back to what I just said about the three dimensions of driving a business outcome. People will talk about digital thread, and it's really a linkage of their tool to their tool to their tool, and they stitch it together and say, look how good we can complete this thought. And that's great. I mean, it's really good when you're looking at them. We chose not to do it that way. What we chose to do was if you're in the aerospace sector, if you are in automotive, your automotive supplier, if I'm in life sciences, pharmaceutical, whatever, pick the industry. We said, what are those major processes that drive your business in the industry you're in? And we describe them. And then we can go into this environment called Explore and we can show it to you. It looks like a subway map, basically. And then we pick that process and we can walk you through that. But it's all built on something that maps out the end-to-end process definition.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Because every time customers will look and say, yeah, I need that. I especially need that there. How do I get started? Well, now we can answer that. We can say, here's how you get started. We're going to go and we're going to map your process and we're going to decide with you, where are you most broken today? Where is your biggest opportunity? What are the foundational blocks that if we don't solve, you're not going to get the ultimate value that you're looking for? And by the way, how does this align to your business objectives and where you're going? Here's what we think they need to be based on our experience in this industry. And oh, by the way, in other industries where we're seeing some huge advancement. So we can bring that to the table too. That's where I'm telling you, I think the richness of the conversation now is so different than it was just 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, what you're able to do. I mean, what you just described, and we've seen, what you're talking about, but it's pretty powerful to visualize your journey map, your customer journey map, your value stream map, and actually visualize that versus, getting too in the weeds of the technology or PowerPoint ware or something. It's pretty powerful to be able to do that.
Well, Craig, so
So,
think about how we opened. When I look at it, it reminds me of a lean flow, right? I mean, the old
oh
days of
yeah, for
lean
sure.
value map, the value mapping
Kaizen,
diagrams. I mean,
Kaizen.
every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, this is just the right way to do this. It's the right
Well,
way
and
to
it's
do it.
funny because things do come back in life and repeat themselves, like this whole movement around agility and agile. And it's because when I got involved with that, it was about 2005. And one of our clients back then was very innovative. They're a very lean organization. It was actually a Berkshire Hathaway company. And you know how Warren Buffett likes to run things lean. You probably have a few of his clients or a few of his companies. They said, we want to run an ERP program using Agile, which really, frankly, had never been done before. It's kind of counterintuitive. And so we did it. And when I learned it myself, I was sort of leading the effort. I go, this is nothing new. This is lean. This is continuous improvement. This is like, I love this stuff. And so it just brings back Toyota production systems and all the damming and lean kind of full. It's kind of fun to see that come back.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that you said that caught my ear, a lot of software and tech companies talk about, oh, we need to be partners with our clients and we need to listen to our clients and their needs. Everyone sort of talks about that, but you've actually said we need to go beyond that. We need to actually like stretch their thinking, shift their thinking, push them, challenge them. So tell me more about how you do that.
Well, so first of all, we don't try to go into an industry without competency from that industry. So every one of our teams has a collection of people that know the industries they're working in. So we ensure we're immersing ourselves, and that's one of the benefits of being a large company. We've had relationships in our core industry that stem back 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. So we've been a fiber of those industries. So it's not enough for me if my team is coming into a room and saying, well, we ask them what do you want to achieve, or what do you need to solve? I'm like, what kind of partner are you then? If you're not bringing those ideas forward to say, by the way, we've been in 3 of your different divisions, and here's what we're observing. Because I know what I see in my job. I have, I don't know, 3,200 people, right? So oftentimes you're not getting all that data real time. So I see what gets presented to me, and I work my tail off to get out to as many locations as I can. I want to talk to every level of the organization. It takes a long time. If I have a partner that's been involved in multiple elements of my business and can come to me and say, by the way, I've observed these things in your business, think of the value to me. So it's no different for my organization or anyone in this great company of ours. You have a wealth of knowledge, and you should have a wealth of knowledge. One, from your history in the industry you're working in. Two, from your ability to talk to multiple divisions, multiple groups inside of our customer base. Three, to understand what's going on across the industry. Four, work with your peers that are working in other industries. Oftentimes, Craig, when we show, we had Unlimited Tomorrow speak on stage at CES. We featured a company called Blend Hub. These are all by all intent and purposes startups, right?
Sure.
Much smaller companies, but embracing technology because, again, not as many barriers. They don't have these fixed revenue streams that they have to protect, and so they're building this business and they're leveraging tech where they can, and process improvement and all this stuff. But there's stories to be gleaned from there. The stuff we do with race teams, it's amazing. You watch their NPI, it's weekly, right? You run a race, your telemetrics tell you something, and it's like, okay, well, this is an area we need to focus on and improve. You got a couple day iteration, and you got to get prep build for the next race cycle. So it's fascinating to watch. There are gold nuggets in each of those, and our teams need to be bringing those forward. I do host an event annually for a group of executives that's coming up here soon in Scottsdale. Fascinating. In 1 year, we had head of manufacturing at Estee Lauder doing a presentation, and then we had someone from one of the race teams. We had them sitting together at a speaker dinner, and they started talking, and a guy from this consumer products company basically said, you mind if I come visit you? The way you guys do your pit stop planning, I see similarities to the way I need to do changeover on a cell on the manufacturing floor, because I need to do it fast. If I need to change. When you sit and you hear that, who would have naturally thought, let me put this customer with this one? Now, by design, we put this event together so all these different industries can exchange their stories.
Oh, that's so great. It reminds me, we do a lot of work helping organizations, not IT or tech teams, but entire organizations work in a more agile way. from the boardroom down to all the teams. In fact, one of our clients, oil and gas, literally has 3,000 teams. None of them are IT teams; they're all business teams working in this small team, very iterative. And one of the videos that I've shown so many times, you just described it. You've probably seen it. It's this old 1950s, you know, race team, changing tires. And it takes like, I don't know, 60 seconds or 2 minutes or something. And they're windshield wiping and their gas can. And then it shows like 2015 or 2020, and they literally do it in 3 seconds. And it's like,
Yeah, I have that video.
that's innovation. That's continuous improvement. That's elimination of waste. That is lean to the, T, right?
Yeah, and that's a Formula One car if it's the one I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
and it's ridiculously fast.
Crazy.
And yeah, and those teams use our software end to end, and they're amazing adopters of technology, both Formula One and NASCAR. So we do a lot with the race teams, and they know how to leverage that technology. It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, that's awesome. So let's Ship. You mentioned that you do lead a large organization, have over 3,000 people. So let's talk about leadership a little bit. Um, you can't have great outcomes, which we're all striving for, without great people, without great teams, without high performing teams. So how do you think about doing that and driving that kind of environment and culture?
It's my favorite topic. It's probably the hardest one to speak on, but I always speak from the heart on this because, it's funny. I don't fixate on things a lot of leaders fixate on. I focus on our core values. I focus on when I see individual contributors leaning in heavy to help our customers or help their team. I really focus on I don't think it's anything new to a lot of people, but there's a lot of ways to approach running a business. You can approach it by saying, hey, it's my job as the boss. I'm going to build a strategic plan and I'm going to roll it out and I'm going to expect everyone to execute. And that's great. I mean, look, a lot of people have done that successfully. I challenge that thinking because I think it's very difficult to roll out a strategic plan that your key leadership team, and I'm talking your direct leadership team and the level below, had no say in building. And so what I'd much rather do is say, look, here's the objective. Here's what we really need to do. Here's a stretch opportunity of what I think the art of the possible is, because I think the enemy to true success is incremental gain.
Mm,
If we're too busy patting ourselves on the back for incremental,
yeah.
yet the real opportunity was, and we've seen companies grow at ridiculous percentage rates. And, we were accustomed, oh, if I can get single digit growth, I'm doing great. Why? Is that really great anymore? And so you bring the team together with, look, here's our challenge. I'm going to frame that challenge. We're going to come in as a leadership team with our vast experiences, and we're a collection of multiple acquisitions. We could have brought those acquisitions and say, thou shalt do it our way.
Right. Right.
We didn't do that. We studied what they did and we said, wow, what you're doing there is awesome. Come on, teach us. Let's figure out. We're going to show you what we're doing in these
It's a great way
areas.
to
Well,
pull them in and to be part of the
yeah,
team too, right?
be part, own our growth, own our model, execute what you were a part of building. Because when you execute something you were a part of building, you execute with passion and
Yeah.
understanding. It's far more powerful. And I'm telling you, we've been a really high performance team as a result, and it's all credit to them. And it's a privilege for me to work for them.
Right. But you've pulled them into the process. So they feel authentically they are part of the team in terms of input and, expertise and passion. So that's great. I mean, when we do a lot of transformation work, we typically start it with something very simple that's 30 plus years old. You probably are very familiar with it. It's called a lean A3 session. And it's a working session. And the main purpose is you get people collaborating, sharing, where are we today? What's our biggest problems? Getting that alignment, everyone's got skin in the game. Everyone's got now accountability because they co-developed it. That is so powerful, right? Same what you
Well,
just described.
Craig, I'll give you and not everyone's going to love hearing this, but I'll tell it anyway. I was doing a town hall in South America, and first question I got asked was about work-life balance. Well, obviously, you're doing this, and how are you going to be an example for us for work-life balance? And I paused, and I ended up meeting with this early career person a couple days later, And she and I had a great discussion about how I ended up answering this question. And I said, listen, I paused intentionally because I'm not convinced you're going to love my answer.
Right.
Uh, and the reason you might not love my answer is because in your question, I already feel I failed you because you are asking me to choose between work and life. And what I want
Right.
to tell you is I don't view those things as separate. I care about the people I work with tremendously. They are friends and they're family to me. Do I say that they're work and then I need to get away from them to get to life? To me, it's a continuum. And what I need to do is give you a rewarding environment wherever you are. When you are here doing this job and helping a customer cross the line that may be making a device that's going to save someone's life, or they're going to provide a product that's going to improve the quality of life. Is that just a job? I would tell you that's a mission. It's a charter. It's something we should be
Mhm.
proud of and you should enjoy doing. And if lines blur and you end up working 12 hours one day, but then, hey, you need mental downtime and you're going to work two the next, so be it. We'll have a model to support you. But we're here as a backstop to one another, and we're here to be a part of our customers' fiber. I want that to be rewarding, whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
whether it's on the clock, off the clock. There is no clock, right? This is, life is
That's
work, work is life. So,
Yeah,
that's
that's
just my view on
beautiful.
it.
I love that, Del, because I think it's one of the big disservices we did, over the past 20 years is even this notion of work-life balance. Like we disconnected people's passion, their personal lives from work. And so what we're saying, don't bring your passions, don't bring your what gets you excited into the office. And that's exactly, what you want. So I love that. And so that's awesome. Hey, one thing I also love is you get this idea of an excuse board. So tell us about that.
Oh, look, we need to have candid conversations. So I'm okay in every meeting if we have a board and you need to write things. And after a while, some of them start to feel like excuses. And I'm like, look, we can have an excuse board in every meeting as long as when the meeting's over, that board's clear. But one thing we're never going to do is walk out of any discussion with an excuse of why not. So we talk about this idea of positive energizers. There's some great books on the subject, but what a difference it makes when you actually learn how to actively listen versus not. How many conversations have you been in where you haven't even completed what you want to say and you get the yes, but and so we always talk about the yes and, but more importantly, as important as those things are, the reality is when that person's done speaking, can you articulate what they said, not by repeating words, but actually capturing intent? If you
Yeah.
can't, that means you are not actively listening. You are thinking about your point and then your point counterpoint. And what we're not doing is being productive and we're not being collaborative and we're definitely not a team. So it's a pet peeve of mine, bad excuses, talking over one another, being not taking the opportunity to learn in every engagement and every conversation. It's just life's too short for that.
Yeah. Well, you're preaching to the choir. This is the 1% better podcast. So it's what we're all about is trying to learn from these every single day and getting better and better. So love that. So and I know you're a big believer in learning from failure, and failure is not a bad thing. And we're both mountain bikers, so I'm gonna give you a question here that you might not have expected. But what can you learn from mountain biking and bring into your work life?
I told this on a call on my organization because my mountain biking is not for the faint of heart, as you know. And I don't even get
No.
to do the really tough stuff like happens in the Carolinas or out west. But I still know what it's like at my age. And I happen to have a great bike, so equipment matters. But what I would tell you is the reason I love mountain biking is you have to leave it all behind. And if you're not focused on what's happening in the trail, you could ride the same trail every day, 3 times a day. Every time the variables change, every time they change, any condition changes that trail. And so you have to pay attention. So I'm forced to clear my head of everything else. I had one case 2 years ago, I didn't. And, I was riding slow. The conditions weren't great. And because I was riding slow, I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't as keenly focused on every variable. I came around a corner a little thin. I clipped a tree. Next thing I know, I woke up downhill, just saw blood, got up, my bike was at the base of the tree. So I clearly, when I hit that handlebar, flipped and I just went off the bike and I'm clipped in. It was an eye opener to me that focus and details matter.
Oh yeah.
Focus and details matter. One, the conditioning, the preparation. But when you go to do something, do it. Do it right. Do it with focus. Multitasking is the enemy of progress. We all feel like we need to do it. I had a
Yeah,
valuable
true.
lesson when I grew in my responsibilities at a larger organization. I'm like, where I would when I was running a team of 8, and I would be multitasking and distracted when someone was sitting in my office. I'm like, when you're running a team of 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000, that person doesn't get a lot of time with you. And if where they're looking at you and you're looking at your screen or you're looking at your phone, Lord knows you've gone to enough dinners where families are having conversation and everyone's looking at their phone or they're not talking at
Right.
all. I'm like, why did you
Right.
go out to eat? And so no different in mountain biking. Distraction is danger. It's just,
Yeah. It's interesting. So my very first serious mountain biking ride on a nice bike and really sort of aggressive terrain, riding with a really great rider, and he let me go first, so I didn't try to keep up with him. And I told myself maybe 50 times in my head, just go slow, because I knew it's a dangerous sport and this is pretty dangerous conditions. I told myself that, and then all of a sudden I got into a little bit of like comfort level, like I got this, and I started getting in, pretty good speed, and then I got distracted. I started daydreaming. I started thinking about something else, and I launched into the woods. And um, next thing I knew, went over a hill too fast, and there was a turn right at the bottom of the hill. And next thing I knew, I was on my back and knocked out, and I couldn't see, I couldn't feel my body. It could have been a lot worse if I would have hit a tree or a rock or something. But what it taught me is what you just described, which is I got out of that moment. I got out of really paying attention to what I was doing. And that immediately, I got comfortable, too comfortable. And then that's when it happened. So that can happen in work, right? Just like you described, like we got to pay attention.
absolutely, Craig. And I'm telling you, if you and I run into each other in a year, I could recite this story to you because that's when you were talking, that's all I focused on because, it parallels my story. And, I think about that's why when I listen to what someone says, I want to capture the essence of what they're saying, the words, the body language. I mean, clearly it's a trying ordeal when you have those. I've had 3, I would say, major falls that I felt like I was lucky to get back on the bike. Many other falls, but those 3 I'll always remember them. I can tell you exactly what happened on each. So it's important we learn and we evolve, but every time that staying focused is so critically important.
And we learn a great deal from those 3 incidents, just not only about what happened, but like, okay, how do I apply this more broadly? There's a saying I love in a video that's knowledge does not equal understanding. So you and I both had knowledge. We knew the dangers. We knew what we should be doing, but we didn't understand it until we failed or until we did it and you've lived it, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's been great. Time's flown by. I always ask one question here at the end of the podcast, and that is, looking back at your entire life and career and everything you've learned, what, sort of words of wisdom, life lessons would you want to pass on to the next generation or some, grandchild or someone that's just starting in their life? Just things that you've learned you'd want to pass on.
Yeah, not many, because I think the core is the core. And it's the core. What is your core? Identify who you want to be. And every day is a test. And did you pass or fail? It's not complicated. Um, we all know what the golden rule is. For me, it's beyond that. What is your compass? I tell my son all the time, and it's going to sound familiar to everybody. It's not about how you acted when everyone sees you. It's about how do you act when no one does. And to me, there's no difference. I don't judge myself on how I behave around people. I judge myself when I'm not around people and I have to make a decision. So that's one. I think the other thing is I just have an insatiable curiosity. There's rarely a conversation I'm in that I don't think there's an opportunity to learn or better myself or better folks around me or better a situation. There's wisdom in so many places, good and bad, by the way. It's easy to learn from someone or something or some situation to say, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to demonstrate that. And so curiosity in everything around you, there's just so many opportunities out there to stretch yourself and to challenge yourself.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of great nuggets in there. Thank you for that. And thanks for taking the time. And let's bring manufacturing back in the U.S. Thanks, Dale.
I love it. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks for listening to the 1% Better podcast. We hope you found it insightful and useful for your improvement journey. As always, you can access podcast transcripts and links to reference material at trissential.com/podcast. If you would like to be a guest on 1% Better, you can do it on the same site. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please like, share, or rate our podcast. Until the next episode, here's to getting 1% better every day.